Continuing with the lilies, they've been filled in, and now what we're doing is we're adding some shadows. And these shadows will become the reflections. So you paint over and around all in one direction. And then you're going to paint it a couple of times, because the first time you'll take a lot of time on it, which I'll show you down here. Now this is how I tend my brush. I take my brush and I load it up, but I want to have a really nice sharp point, so I bring it down like this and I twist it as I wipe out. These hold a lot of liquid, so often I want to remove a lot of the liquid, and then I want this to come back to a nice point, and that way I can get in here and cast my shadows where I need them to be. And you can see that that's in there. And I will go over this some 2-3 times, and then it's not the only step towards making these shadows, and as I'll be putting some green to it. For reflection. And if you notice, I'm only shadowing one portion of this. The front. So that these will get that perspective a little bit more dimensional. This time it's a more paint, less water, and a little smaller line. It'll do a little bit of bleed with that first coat I did. You can see this one here, but I'm going to go back and make it a little stronger and a little more on this one. You have to remember when you're painting that with acrylics, watercolor style, and with watercolors, what you put on the palette or canvas or paper, depending on what you're painting on, it's going to dry considerably lighter. As you can see, this is still showing wet. This one isn't, and so it's considerably lighter, and you have to have the patience. You can, God love him, I just absolutely adore Bob Ross and his quick paint. You know what he could do in 30 minutes, but that's not my style of painting, and that's a great avenue for learning, but even Bob would tell you, although he didn't on those shows very often, detail is going back and adding those extra white lines when you're doing an ocean painting or any type of painting, is getting that additional detail and beauty into a painting. Okay, I've got this one up here still. Although I really like a good professional framing to a painting, I do try, and most of the time I'll take it over the edge, paint the edge so it can hang on a wall like this. When it's for a gallery, of course, it's going to wind up being framed to their standard. But okay, so now I'm looking back at that again as it dries. I can see the ones I particularly like. I think I can actually bring this one around here, based on the light, and grab a little more paint. I'm wishing I would have taken this one off of the palette. It has a character flaw to it. And I'm hoping that as I continue to paint, it will pop. I'll probably have to make it up with some of the water and shadow. I'm going back and making this one bigger. And I'm going to take it on around and see if I can compensate that. One thing continuing to paint teaches you constantly that you can move forward. You see how dark this, or how light this one got, so I'll go back and do this one again. I do a watercolor style acrylic. And therefore I have to be redundant and go back and do it a couple of times, because that's the way I choose to paint. You can make it much thicker if you like and not do it the way I do it. Okay. Now I'm going to thin down my paint with a really nice wet brush, as you can see. And I'm going to get a shadowy substance. As I've already laid in green over the yellow, I'm just using this black, and what I'm going to do is go back and lay in some shadow in some of the spots, catching these ripples. Just a little too thin. So this time I add a little more, and then this time I'm going to wipe out some of that water. Twisting again to that point. Now, like I said, remember this is going to dry lighter, and you can take a little bit of a mop brush and blend that around a little, or soak some of it up if you don't like it as much. When you're brushing down, you're going to clean it away. When you're brushing up, you're going to bring it more into play. And this is being pushed back. So I'm adding shadow behind. This is a curled up leaf in the front. As you can see, if you do this in this layering effect, it doesn't take it away. Now you can, another way I do this is I use my fingers. I use them a lot. That takes me back. And although there isn't any really dripping down here, but if you do get drips and you streak out, follow your water flow, you can just, this is just lightly touching, and you have a brief period of time. With the watercolor on paper or acrylics, it's way less. It's like instantly sops in. But with the canvas, you can put some, I'm going to put it here, you can put it on there, and then you have a little bit of time to brush back and forth and get a little blend. Now, what I'm looking for is, again, these flipped bits of my lilies. To give them a little more shadow. I'm using the black paint, but I will be putting a touch of green on top of it. For those of you that don't want as many steps, you could just go to the green, but I do what I find works for me and the results that I like, which change constantly, because as an artist, I'm always evolving, learning. And here's where I'll put in a comparison after this dries. Just a comparison photo. To show the difference. Uh-oh, time for a battery. Okay, now since I have the black paint, I was probably going to go back and probably will again, but I'm going to go ahead and add a little depth by adding some shadowing into that. And here again, I'm just washing with a thin down paint and doing my little spin off to get my points. And I'm going to bring these in and just shape. I'm going to go to the back flowers mostly and just get a little shadowing in here to add some depth, add some value. There is no value without light and dark. That is really where your values come from. And here's where I've got these little drips. See these drip dots right in here? And by just brushing that up with my mop, I